Roots and Shoots, which began in Tanzania in 1991, is now in 100 countries around the world, with about 9,000 active programs involving young people from preschool right through university. And we're beginning to work also in prisons and with elderly and so forth. It's a symbolic name. If you imagine a seed that will grow into a mighty tree, it starts out with tiny little roots and a tiny little shoot, and it looks so frail, but there is so much life force in that seed that to reach the water, those little roots can work through boulders and knock them aside, and that little shoot to reach the sunlight can work its way through crevices in a brick wall until the wall is destroyed. So we imagine that the boulders and the wall are all the problems that we humans have inflicted on poor Mother Earth, environmental and social. And the message is hope. Hundreds and thousands of young people around the world working together can make this a better world for all living things. So why in the First Nations? I come directly from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, which is said to be the second poorest reservation for Native Americans in the U.S. And we've been working there for 3 years with this Roots and Shoots program, just as a pilot. It's taken that time to get the trust of the elders. It's taken that time to involve a number of young people because of the problems of alcoholism and drugs with the parents, because so many white people go into the reservation to collect information, perhaps for a PhD. They say they're going to be doing something, but then they quit. And so there's a great mistrust of any program coming in with white people. We started this program with a young couple, one native and one white, and they started with a community garden. And initially, that garden was torn down just when everything was blooming and all the food was ready to eat. But they didn't give up. They built it again. And it was when that garden was torn down that for the first time the elders came and brought them cups of tea and said they were sorry and that they realized this was a good thing. So the whole point of Roots and Shoots is to give young people hope, to empower them to take action, to understand the problems, to sit around and talk about the problems, and then the program will grow in a way that is determined by the people of the community where it's introduced. There is no set formula. It's very flexible, and it will grow to suit the soil where you plant the seeds. It's very much about breaking down the barriers between cultures, between religions, between nations, and breaking down the barriers between us and the natural world. It involves projects to help people, to help animals, to help the environment. It involves young people coming into contact with, either through the internet, email, or whenever possible, directly face-to-face, coming in contact within the country where they live, and then making contact also with young people in other parts of the world. So it truly is planting seeds of global peace. It's empowering young people by letting them take action, and then they see for themselves what their action leads to. And it's creating youth with a positive attitude, with hope instead of hopelessness. And if young people today lose hope, we may as well all give up, because with no hope, then there's apathy and no action. So I really hope that this program is going to benefit the First Nation people, because that's why I'm standing here today.
Thank you very much, Jane, Mr. Martin, and thank you all for being here this morning. I want to thank the dedicated staff at the Jane Goodall Institute, and of course Dr. Jane Goodall herself for taking time out of her extremely busy schedule to visit us here in Ottawa. It is indeed an honor to have her here. I also want to thank Dr. Keith Martin for hosting today's press conference, and also for assisting to implement two Roots and Shoots programs that are in the process of being established in his riding on Vancouver Island. He has been an important part of connecting Roots and Shoots to the Assembly of First Nations. We believe this program will prove fruitful for the youth and community of Beecher Bay and T'sou'ke First Nations. As many of you know, Jane Goodall is perhaps the world's most well-known primatologist, but she's also a dedicated environmentalist, humanitarian, an animal rights advocate, and a United Nations Peace Ambassador. Our one website has described Jane Goodall as humanity's guardian angel. I suppose that after so many decades of working with chimpanzees, Dr. Goodall has seen how at times chimps bear a striking similarity to us humans. For instance, when male chimps get agitated, they scream and stamp their feet. This is very similar to what happens during question period in the House of Commons. Maybe worse here. We all know that politicians can drive us bananas. Present company excluded, of course, Dr. Keith Martin, but I digress. On a serious note, when I first heard about Roots and Shoots, it struck me as a perfect fit for First Nations. More than half of our people are under the age of 25. With the proper encouragement and support, they can be a tremendous source of energy, innovation, and ideas. Roots and Shoots is a program aimed at getting young people involved in developing their own projects to improve the environment and to gain a greater understanding of their culture and, most importantly, improve the lives of the people in their communities. We see Roots and Shoots not only as a source of inspiration for our young people, but as another important ally in our main objective, to which is to eradicate First Nations poverty by empowering the young people as the engine of solutions and change in our communities. Roots and Shoots will connect our young people with other young people in Canada and around the world. Together, they will share their solutions and plans of what they can do for their community, for the environment, and for others. As we have seen in many parts of the world who participate in this program, ideas range from planting community vegetable gardens, planting trees, starting local recycling programs, bringing water into communities, promoting peace, and tackling the various manifestations of poverty. Together, they will realize that we are all part of a global family, and we are all involved in a global struggle to make this a better world for our children and our children's children. It is our hope, as the months unfold, more and more First Nation communities will participate in this program. The Jane Goodall Institute has the domestic and international experience to work with children in need, who through this worthwhile program can build up their self-esteem by empowering our young people to shepherd projects and share ideas with other children in other parts of the world. This program is an important piece in tackling First Nations poverty, as poverty robs so many of our children of the hope they need to envision a better future. The Jane Goodall Institute, through the Roots and Shoots program, is a flexible, culturally sensitive, human rights and environment-centered program, which I believe so many of our children can benefit from. Thank you very much, and Dr. Keith.
I'd just like to thank both Dr. Goodall and Chief Fontaine for doing this. The genesis of this really came out of a walk that Dr. Goodall and I took when she visited Victoria some 2 years ago. And it was an evening, we were walking around the Inner Harbour, and at that time we discussed the notion of seeing if Roots and Shoots could be implemented in First Nations communities. In my riding, I have several First Nations communities, two of which have sustained a lot of the tragedy and trauma that both Dr. Goodall and Chief Fontaine spoke about. Tragedies and trauma that no child should ever endure. In those communities, we have some very young, strong leaders. And when I approached those leaders with the idea to have the Roots and Shoots program, they embraced it. And with Chief Fontaine's leadership and Dr. Goodall's leadership, and thanks to the hard work of the staff at the Jane Goodall Foundation, we're starting to roll this out. And we certainly hope that while it starts on Vancouver Island, we certainly hope that this will be embraced by other communities across our country, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal, for the benefit of the children in those communities.